Hi friends, it's Deanna here today, and today I'm coming at you with another hack. So a little while ago, I used the Chapman Cardigan to create a dress, matching it with the staycation skirt, and I thought that was super adorable. Well, as I was browsing through, I saw this cute romper that looked similar to the bodice of the Chapman and the bottoms of the Southshore Romper. And I thought, oh my goodness, that would be such a cute hack. So I figured, why not? Let's try it. Let's see how it ends up. I'm going to be using the sleeveless versions of the Chapman cardigan because this is going to be a fun, casual outfit. Now, I'm going to be doing it as a romper, but the good news is if you want to make this and you're like, I don't really love rompers because, you know, I don't really like the two-piece romper. I mean, a one-piece romper. I made a video on how you can change your romper, your Southshore romper, to be two-piece. So you could use that same hack for this and make it a two-piece instead of just a regular one-piece romper. So let's get started. What I'm going to do is I am going to cut my fabric. The Southshore romper bottoms, I'm going to cut them just exactly like the pattern calls for. I'm not changing anything except for I'm going to do the capri length, and I actually like them to be a little wider leg. So I'm going to go out about 1 inch on each side of the leg, just because I like the wide leg look. You don't have to do that. That's just my preference. And for the top of the Chapman cardigan, I'm going to the line where it, like the waist line of the pattern, but the top, everything else, it's staying the same. It's just the length. I'm just changing the length. And you can decide how long you want to make this top part be, or how short you want it. If you want it like right under the bust, or if you want it all the way down to your hip, or whatever it is that you want to do. So, but that's the only thing I'm changing. So let's cut, let's sew it up real quick and just show you how cute this is. I'm just here to give you all this advice, or to give you inspiration for you to go ahead and mash up your own patterns. So I'm just going to do this real quick. If you need help on sewing up these patterns, if this is a little bit too quick for you for a sew up, we do have a actual sewing tutorial for each of these patterns, the Chapman cardigan and the Southshore romper, so you can check that out if you'd like. But let's get started. I'm going to be using this gorgeous French terry fabric. This is a French terry rayon. Some people like French terry, some people don't. I actually love French terry, so I like to wear French terry. See the line right here at the waist? That's the line that I'm using to cut my pattern on. For the neckband, for the Chapman cardigan, I am not cutting the whole length. I don't need the whole length, so I'm just cutting part of it, and then whatever is left over, I'm just going to cut it off because I didn't really measure. But I'm also not doing it the full length. I'm gonna subtract 1 inch. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go up 1 inch. So take 1 inch off and cut it 1 inch shorter because I don't want it to be so wide. And I learned that from my last hack that I did with the Chapman cardigan. I learned that for it to look more like a dress, I want this band to be a little bit thinner. Here's where I'm going a little bit wider, so it just kind of goes along the edge. It just kind of goes straight up. Whew, that fit just perfectly. Almost didn't make it all the way on. I was a little nervous. I'm using every bit of this fabric up. All right, let's start sewing. So because I'm doing the sleeveless version, I can basically sew a lot of it up real quick. I've got my bodice back. I'm gonna place it up on my mat. Ooh, there's a lot of things on my mat. And then I've got my front, and I'm gonna place it right sides together, and I'm gonna sew the shoulders and the side seams. All right, so once those are sewn, I'm also going to prep my neckband, if I can find it. No, not my neckband, my armbands. where are my armbands? No, this is my neckband. These are my armbands. I think I cut them, both of them, like on the fold. Instead of cutting 2 pieces, I think I cut 1 on the fold. But it's supposed to be 2 pieces, but I want to make sure that this is what it is before I go ahead and cut it in half, and then ends up not being the ones I'm thinking. Armbands. Yep, these were the armbands. So I'm going to split them up because I should have 2 armbands, not one big long armband. And then I'm going to grab them and sew the raw edge, the short raw edge together. But because I told you this was going to be a quick sew, I'm also going to prep my pockets because I'm adding pockets to this. And I'm adding pockets to all the sides. So I'm going to add a pocket bag to each side of the pant, and it is 2 inches down from the top. So I'm going to grab my ruler, and then on the raw edge, I'm going to go down 2 inches and place them on that raw edge face down. I'm going to do that for all the sides, all the pant legs. I kind of wanted to give you a behind the looks on how I try to get everything all put together just to quickly sew it. I think that with like more time sewing, more experience, you get a little bit more comfortable. So if you're not at that point yet and you want to take your time and do one at a time, one step at a time, that's completely understandable. You'll get to the point where you already know what steps are ahead, especially when you've sewn a pattern so many times like this one, because I love it. So then you already know what's coming up next, so you can prepare different parts of the sew and move on. And now I don't do this all the time. Like I don't do it with a new pattern because then I'm like, ooh, what's the step that's coming next? Unless I read all the pattern instructions and all that first, sometimes I will do that. So then I can skip around if it's like something that I've already made, like similar to something I've already made, but it's a different pattern. But anyway, but when you get the hang of a pattern like this one, you kind of just do it all at once. So let's go do all those things. All right, so we have our bodice pretty much finished. Now we just gotta attach our neckband. So we're gonna fold this neckband in half and find our middle section. And we're also going to find our middle back. So match those shoulders together and find that back. And then we're going to attach it right sides together. So fold this band in half, wrong sides together, and then where you mark that half, that's going to be where it starts right here. And you can steam it if you want to on the fold, especially if you're using stubborn fabrics. Giving it a good steam really would help. And so now we're just going all the way down, stretching lightly here at the beginning of the shoulder neck area. On the pattern itself, there is a little marker. It shows you where you need to be stretching a little bit to kind of bring that in. But it's not a whole lot of stretching, it's just a little bit. And because of the fact that I just like cut my band a little bit longer, so I'm just like doing a light stretch, just very light. All right, and now I'm going to also prep my armbands. They already are cut out and sewn, so I'm just folding it wrong sides together and quartering it and attaching it right sides together. And if you need help with how to attach bands, we do have a video about bands that helps to show you more in detail how to do that. I have my neckband and my actual pinning scissors, my little clipping scissors. All right, so these are prepped. And while we're at it, I'm going to also grab my bottoms and prep my legs. You're gonna have a front and a back together because they're gonna be a leg. So you gotta make sure, first of all, that they are the right ones, so they're gonna match. Second of all, they are different in height right here. So if you've got two that are the same, that's not what you want. You want a front and a back because you're creating the leg. So you want one that's got a longer crotch, which is going to be the back, and a shorter crotch, which is going to be the front. So then we're going to sew the side seams. So match them right sides together and sew those side seams. If you have pockets on the outer side, you're gonna go down around the pocket and down, and this is the inner side. Like so. All right, so our bodice is basically put together. Now the only step that's left for our bodice is to fold it right on top of each other like so. Try it on and then see how close you want this band. On my other one, I basically just went, so I have this leftover band right here, just a little bit. You can just clip that off. But anyway, I basically just kind of topped it on top of each other and that fit perfectly. So you may want to go try it on and see how tight you want that waist to be. So you can bring it in a little bit or however you want that to be. And then you can baste these two together. So just like a basting stitch right here, because then we're going to just add full buttons. You don't really need buttons because it's, you don't have to undo it because it goes right over your head. But if you want real buttons, you can definitely add real buttons on here. So that is up to you. But what I'm going to do is I'll just baste these two together and then I'll just put buttons right on top. So it'll be like full buttons, not real buttons. And so I'm gonna set this aside and I'm gonna grab my bottoms and I'm gonna grab one and face it right side out and the other one stays inside out. And we basically just have one more step to do with our pants, which is sewing that crotch seam, and that's Bo saying hello. So we're gonna match those up and go up to one side and then down to the other side. Right sides together. There. Now, and the only thing I have left to do is to grab my sash. So now I cut it in one long piece so I don't have to sew the middle together. So all I'm doing is I'm folding it right sides together and I am basically just sewing around the whole thing, leaving a gap to turn it around, right side out. But that's all I'm doing with that. So let's sew those bottoms together, let's sew the sash, and then after that all we have to do is attach our bottoms to our top by gathering our bottoms to fit our top, putting a gathering stitch at the top of our bottoms. So I'll probably do that. I'll go sew the crotch together and then I'll move over to my sewing machine and sew a gathering stitch for my bottoms at the waistline. And then I'm going to gather them to fit my bodice and then we'll attach, hem, and be done. All right, so I tried on my top and I placed it where I think I want it. And now we're going to sew in that stitch right here. Now I'm grabbing my stitch and making it a long stitch and putting it along the top of my bottoms to create a gathering stitch to be able to gather my bottoms to fit to my bodice. And you can gather however you'd like to. I'm just doing it with a long basting stitch. Now another thing that I'm doing is I'm gonna grab my band and turn it right side out, my sash. And then I'm gonna grab right here where the area is, the opening. I'm gonna fold the seam allowance in. You can top stitch it, actually, steam it. Sorry, I'm kind of cutting that open because I had those together. But anyway, you can steam it down. That might be helpful. Oh my goodness, the serger tail is wanting to come out. And then you're going to top stitch it closed. All right, so now we just have a couple of steps left. Here's my bodice ready, and here's my bottoms ready as well. And there's not a whole lot of of gathering that I have to do to attach them together. Now the thing is, this is going to be a little bit oversized because the cardigan is, the Chapman cardigan is a little bit oversized at the waist. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the sash to bring it all in. Now, if you wanted it, like I said or mentioned earlier, if you want this to fit a little bit more fitted, what I would do is I would go ahead and make the cardigan go in a little bit. So I would go maybe make the waist go in a little bit when you sew the side seams. Try it on and make it a little bit tighter, so it goes in a little bit for you. I'm fine with it being a little bit looser and then just tying it because I want it to blouse a little bit. So that's why I'm doing it that way. So now we're going to fit the bodice. I'm just gonna fit my bodice over my bottoms, matching those quarters. I mean the side seams, the front and the side seams, right sides together. And then you're gonna match the whole around the waist. We're also going to hem our bottoms and we'll be done. You know what else would be cool to this? If you wanted to add a drawstring here. To do that, all you would have to do, and we do have a tutorial on how to add a drawstring, because the reason why I say that is because adding a drawstring would bring it in at the waist if you wanted to do that. You would sew it, you would put it together just like this, and you would sew it an inch in. So you would sew an inch in instead of sewing it at the edge. And then you would, one of the sides, the leftover, the seam allowance, the inch seam allowance, you would fold it up and top stitch it to create a casing for the drawstring. It would be really easy to do. And you could either put a drawstring there or you could put elastic at the waist and you would bring it in without having to use the sash. So that's another idea that you could do to this romper if you found it to be too loose at the waist, which it is going to be loose at the waist. I'm telling you that right now. I know because I know the Chapman cardigan is a little bit looser, but that's the look I'm going for. All right, so I'm gonna sew that, I'm gonna hem, and then I'm gonna show it all to you. All right, friends, we are done, and I wanted to show you what it looks like without the sash. It's a little bit wider here, like I said, was going to be, and now I'm going to add the sash, and we're going to bring it in a little bit because I really like the look of it kind of draping out like so. So that is the reason why I wanted this to be a little bit bigger here at the sides. But another thing I noticed when I put it on is that I forgot to add buttons, and I said I wanted to add buttons. So I'm gonna go back and add the button. So far, so good. I love how this turned out. I think this would be super cute too, made as shorts if you wanted to. And let me tell you something, the neckline was a little bit, to stretch, you have to stretch it to get it over your body because you have to go through your hips. So if you were having a hard time with that, you could definitely do real buttons so you can open it up, put it over, and put it back on. Now, if you didn't want it to be a full romper, we do have a video, like I mentioned earlier, about how to make it into separates, but I think this turned out amazing. Just exactly what I was thinking about, what I had in my head, and I love it. I hope you love it as well. I hope you enjoyed this. Subscribe if you haven't so you never miss any of our tutorials, and I'll see you in a little bit.